Thank you. My name is NARA. I'm a member of the that is my name. I'm a member of the TIFF Next Wave Committee, the team that programs this incredible festival for all of you. On behalf of TIFF Next Wave Film Festival, I'd like to welcome you to today's screening of Ladyworld, directed by Amanda Kramer. To begin, we would like to acknowledge that tonight's event is taking place on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the New Credit and the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and the Huron-Wendat. We are grateful to have the opportunity to work and gather on this land. Thank you to our lead sponsor, Bell, our major sponsors, RBC, L'Oreal Paris, and Visa. Thanks also to our major public supporters, the City of Toronto and the Ontario Arts Council, for their ongoing support. The TIFF Next Wave Committee is supported by the Slate Family Foundation Learning Fund. And of course, thank you to our members and donors for their generous contributions to TIFF and to those who support TIFF's learning programs year-round. If you're wondering how to get up onto this stage too, TIFF is already recruiting new members for the 2018-2019 TIFF Next Wave Committee, a group of 12 high school students like myself who love film and who plan events like this festival. Applications are due in May and are available online at tiff.net/nextwave. TIFF Next Wave is all about creating, discovering, connecting what's next. Thank you for spending your weekend with us. Out of all the potential films we screened to become a part of this weekend, Ladyworld is a film I knew I wanted to share with all of you. This film is an engaging look at what it means to be a lady in today's world. I was on the edge of my seat through every minute and know you will be as well, so get ready. But first, we are so lucky to have the director here with us. She will be here after for a Q&A, but first, please join me in welcoming her to the stage to say a few words. Ladies and gentlemen, Amanda Kramer.
Hi, guys. This is kind of awkward, but I have to take your photo for my mom, so if you don't mind. She's not going to believe you guys all showed up. So I just have to, like, can you do, like, your camp faces, you know, like, you just give me, like, your weird, just show me whatever. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. Just give me all your phone numbers, and I'll text it to all of you, too, if you want. Thanks for having me. I'm so happy to be in Toronto. This is the greatest honor to be chosen by people around the age of my wonderful actresses. On behalf of them, thank you. I'm so happy to have this screening at TIFF Next Wave. It's my favorite festival, and it's been just the best opportunity to talk to people that I wrote the movie for. So I hope you enjoy it. And if you're too stressed out to stay for the Q&A afterwards, I forgive you. It's no big deal. But if not, I'll see you after. Relax, it's gonna get weird. Bye, guys.
Thank you, Amanda. So if you can, stick around after for the Q&A. It'll be great. Maybe answer some questions about the weirdness you see. But just sit back, get ready, and let it wash over you.
Okay, thank you everyone for staying for the Q&A. My name is Xavier, this is Flora, and we are gonna give you a little housekeeping rules before we start.
Okay, so how this is gonna work is there's gonna be people running around with microphones, and if you have a question, just raise your hand all the way up, and we'll try to get to everyone, and yeah.
All right, so please join us in welcoming, or re-welcoming Amanda.
Hey guys, feeling stressed? We're gonna sit because I think we'll enjoy it better. Yeah, probably. As will you.
Okay. So we're gonna start with a question.
Cool.
So I know the sound design was very intense and it was a very creative choice. Do you want to just explain that choice that you had for scoping the film?
Yeah, so the score is made by my friend Callie Ryan. She's an electronic musician who does some voice stuff. When I asked her to do the score, she was getting ready to do something like highly electronic. You guys can totally pass right in front of me anytime. She was getting ready to make this like highly electronic score, and I told her, no, I just want like the female voice. And she was like not happy because obviously it's not what she wanted to do. But she just locked herself in a room and made every single sound that she could make. And I just gave her like almost like magnetic fridge poetry. You just like throw words out and you're like, you know, sex, sadness, like epicness, war, torture, and then she just made sounds out of her mouth that reminded her of those words, and that's how I got my score. It's great. Isn't it so good? I mean, I think it's like, it really makes the movie. When you watch that movie without the score, you're like, oh, okay, yeah. That seems upsetting, but then it like really takes it to the next level, I think, personally.
All right, so does the audience have any questions? Right.
Thank you. Wow, I have no words to describe how interesting this movie is. I am
Interesting,
not,
I'll take that as a word.
I'm not the next wave, unfortunately. I'm old enough to assume that you are paying tribute to many filmmakers from history through film. I just wonder who inspired you in the filming history to do this, because as I say, I've been old enough to watch many from the past, but I guess for so long, this is, I don't know, unwavering. It's just really...
Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Okay, thank you. So that's hard. I mean, a bit Fassbinder, who made The Bitter Tears of Petra von Kant. I think it's weird to say that you're inspired by Rembrandt. He didn't make any movies, unfortunately, though he probably would have been very good at it. But like The Last Supper, Rembrandt's Last Supper and stuff. Just really inspired by a lot of like female mania, psychotic women films of like the 60s and 70s European art house, where women get like entirely deranged. The whole point of the movie is like a woman starts out essentially being gaslit, and by the end she's just screaming utter madness. I really wanted to make something like that. I think it's an amazing opportunity for an actress, but mainly Fassbinder and his female roles, and then a lot of Jenna Rollins from Cassavetes I'm pretty inspired by.
Hi. First of all, you're fly as hell. Love the fit. Sorry.
Thanks.
Second of all, what would it take for an actress to get in that casting room? Like they showed like an amazing range of emotion, and I was just wondering like what the casting room looked like and what it took for them to get in there.
Yeah, so I don't believe in casting. I think it's bourgeois, and I think it's kind of sickening. I don't believe in putting actresses on tape. I don't believe in going through like the traditional agent system. It's really demeaning and demoralizing, I think, to a lot of actors and actresses. If you are one, I think that there are a few directors that feel the same way. I just like having coffee with actresses. So I find them and I meet them and I have a time with them and I just ask them honestly like who they are, and that's my process. And so for the most part, many of the actresses cast the other actresses. So I would cast one and I would say, you guys got any friends that you like? That you hang out with? And a lot of them do the hard work for me, which is another great way to do it. In this film, many of them are friends with each other, but then not friends with the other girls. So it was like a rolling process. But it's funny. This is a totally boring anecdote, but I'm going to tell it anyway. There's a place I usually meet the girls. And I had met like 20 of them over the course of a month at this cafe in Los Angeles. And one day I was waiting for one to come, and I could see all the busboys talking. And one of the busboys comes up to me, and he's like, I'm sorry, we have a bet going. What do you do for a living? You have met like 20 15-year-old girls like in the past month. And I was like, I'm not telling you, but like I'm so excited to know what your bet might be. No, I was like, I'm a director. But but yeah, it's just about like seeing them in person and seeing what their personalities are like. I think these are tough roles and these are tough parts, and I think a lot of them surprised me like pretty deeply, but you can just tell when you're with an actor like who's willing to get very raw. You can tell pretty quickly. That's really what I was looking for.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course.
Super humanizing. So.
Yeah, they're great women. They're wonderful people.
Quick question about, after the events of the film, do the characters get therapy? It's very much concerning me. Do they go see a therapist, each and every one of them?
I'm not even sure any of them are real, so I don't know if any of them could get therapy, but Yeah, I mean, they didn't need it on set. They were really happy on set. In fact, like, happier than you could imagine. So, but I think, honestly, like, when you're providing, I don't know, content like this, they're not my generation of women. They're probably closer to the generation of many of the people here. So a lot of them were like, are these really negative images to show about women? Like, they had like very new school concerns about negative female energy and like, was this like a positive way? And I was like, ladies, you guys, like, it gets dark out there. And I think that this is an examination of that. So I feel like this is the therapy. You scream for like 12 straight days and then, you know, you get it out. Hi, down here with the glasses.
I feel like it was like a really unique story, so I was just wondering, how did you like come up with this idea even to like make this movie?
Well, you know, all I really wanted to do was put young women in a film together, and let them just do their thing. I don't feel like teenage girls are given the opportunity in major motion pictures to play anything other than like the daughter, the student, like the love interest of like the boy. And I was sick of it. And it's like a very heartbreaking thing. I mean, teen media is like a vortex. There's a lot of bad shit out there, excuse my language, and it's kind of depressing. And I grew up on Nickelodeon and Disney, and like that stuff it reiterates, like it just, every generation, it reiterates the same thing for young people. And I was hoping to give actors that age something very dramatic. And really it just started there. Like, how can I show this like very tense story between 8 young actresses and just get them together? And unfortunately, it was like, it had to be brutal. But that's really all I wanted to do was think of a piece that would just be like a stage play for 8 young women. So that's where it started. Yeah, of course.
Just pass that down. Thanks a lot. What was the role of, like for you, what was the role of sexuality in this film? Because I think it was definitely like a super important part of it, especially for some of the more like antagonistic characters. So what did that mean for you as in terms of trying to create this world and trying to create that conflict?
Wow, that's a really good question. Well, you know, in the notes phase of this film, when financiers and producers were looking at the script, many of them would give me notes like, oh, you should have them find a boy in a closet, or have them find a boy and then they can all fight over the boy. And that seemed to be the thing everyone wanted. They wanted it to be like there's this sexual tension amongst them because they're attempting to fight over a man, which I found to be so depressing. Because why? I think women exert sexuality amongst each other, and it's a tribalism, it's an animalistic thing, it's a superiority, inferiority complex kind of thing between women that have nothing to do with who they're attempting to bait, whether that's a man or a woman or anyone. It's just about showing that sort of prowess. It's like a peacocking. And I think that when there are certain, as we all know, when we're younger, there's always that girl in the group that becomes highly sexualized first. There's always that girl in the group who becomes highly sexualized last. I was the last girl in my group to shave her legs, and it was like horrifying. Every day people were like, oh, your legs aren't shaved yet. I'm like, we're 12. I'm still playing. I mean, I was Dolly, basically. It's like I'm still playing with Barbie. And I'm so intrigued by that moment when you tip the scale over and you go from being a child to being like a sexual woman, to realizing that you are being sexualized by men and women, and looking at each other as sexual bodies. So it really has nothing to do with who you're having sex with. It just has to do with like owning sexuality for the first time and what that feels like and how you use that to manipulate for good or manipulate for evil. you know. And I think it's fine to be manipulative as a woman. I do think that that's one of our many great attributes. I'm sorry to say. And I think sexuality is a part of that. So it really was for me just about being like, what does it feel like to be just a sexual being and not be like a being having sex? But what does it mean to like have your period? And like, how does that change you hormonally? And how does it make you a tribe as you sort of grow into womanhood? Does that answer the question? Okay. Cool, thanks.
Thank you. That was an amazing answer.
Thanks.
So this is a little broad, but I just thought the costume design was really, really interesting. Like not something I've ever seen before, especially for like a teen movie. And I was just wondering like what your sort of thoughts and your process behind that was.
Well, it's like people who make movies are so lazy when it comes to that department. It's very dark. They'll create these incredible stories. They'll get these amazing teams together, and then they just sort of fall flat. I mean, if you're on the street and you're looking at young people, you see how vivid their lives are, how vibrant their dressing style is, how unique their take on how their personhood, you know? But when you go to reiterate that in culture, not necessarily in music, not necessarily in fashion, but in film, it's the last art form to really understand how cool everyone's getting and just how wild and weird everyone's getting. I mean, look at the two women sitting next to me. It's like, these things are not incredible. These things are not reiterated in filmmaking. And so that's what I strive to do. But I say if you're a young person and you're making work, like, show that. The costume design is a very important part of what I do because I think that young people just look so amazing on their own, and then they're put in these costumes that are just like jeans and a t-shirt. And it's just like, it's just to make you seem like you're a believable person out in the world. But I think if you want to create character, you need to create character. And that's a visual styling from top to bottom. That's like a full aesthetic, like anyone would be in this room when they wake up in the morning and walk outside. So that's like an important part of filmmaking that people just kind of like dip off on. So, and my costume designer's a genius. She's the weirdest little woman, so I just like to let her go nuts.
Hi, I just want to say this is like one of the most incredible films I've ever seen. I've never seen girls portrayed on screen like this. As an actor, I've never seen scripts where young people are actually portrayed in a way that is so carnal and so true. I was just wondering, do you have any other projects and films that you're working on at the moment? And, you know, do they tie in at all to this kind of area of film?
Well, thank you. That's an insane compliment. Yeah, I'm about to shoot a movie in like May or June. What is that, like 5 minutes from now? A couple months from now. Maya's going to be in it, Maya Hawke. She plays Romy, the one with the like Fellini hair and the makeup. They all have makeup, but Maya's the star of it, and it's a really like perverted 1950s movie about a boy gang in Manhattan. So it's like mainly like, you know, girls, but with boys, because you gotta try it. Yeah, it's about a gang of like young men who stalk this very young couple, this like married couple who are like 19 years old, and the husband starts to fall in love with one of the boys in the gang, and the wife becomes obsessed with the gang, and she tries to become one of them. So it's a gender blender sort of like romp through homosexuality, but also just sort of like the odd, perverse 1950s New York City underground. I don't know. That's not a great pitch, but I think it's going to be really weird and cool. So yeah, I'm doing that in May. Is that it? Oh, yeah.
Why is Piper the way
she is. I'm being delicate.
Yeah. So that's the amazing Annalise Basso. When I met Annalise, she was really young. And, you know, I have this thing with redheads. Like, I love how redheads are portrayed as these, like, evil demons, like, throughout cinema and throughout history. I think it's very cool. She's a natural redhead. And the sweetest person you could ever meet. The nicest of all the girls, the kindest soul. And I said to her, you know, like, I would like you to really play this up. I'd like you to be very mean. I mean, on the page, she's mean, but it's a very, like, it's a tonally flat, it's written like you could take it anywhere. And Annalise did a line reading for me, and she did this thing where she was like, okay, I'm going to start now. And I'm like, okay. And she just turns around like this. And then when she comes back to the front, she's like, and it was like her whole body had changed. And she, like, the language of her body was really, she went a place I didn't ask her to go. And it was the most thrilling thing. So, like, I would not take that compliment. That is, if it is a compliment, that is for her. She wanted to be maniacal and lunatic, but she also wanted to be insecure. And I think that there are great moments of her insecurity. I mean, it's rude to reference your own film or ridiculous, but if you remember from a half an hour ago, there's this wonderful moment in the end of a montage where they're doing like a cheers, and there's this shot of her close-up where she's like looking at Olivia and she's like drinking, and she just has this look on her face of just absolute like warpath annihilation. And I think it comes from a place deep inside of Annalise that is about jealousy and fear. And I think she has the perfect mixture of fear. I actually see Piper as just the saddest thing. And I see her as someone who really like is deranged for a darker and sadder reason. So I think she gave it three-dimensionality, but certainly I just said be mean, and she took it to like a new redheaded place. She will now be the new redheaded demon, hopefully.
So this is the final question.
Hi.
Hi.
I hope this doesn't sound too rude or blunt, but I was just wondering, I don't think I personally quite understood the film, and I was wondering if you could please maybe give some context and explain the film just a little bit.
Oh my God. Well, that's not rude. That's just so difficult. You know, it's basically just a human psychology piece. I see them all as, you know, 8 aspects of the same female psyche. Like, they're all like 8 parts of me and 8 parts of women. I think you are always the naive, the brutal, the spiritual, the sexualized, the follower, the leader. Like, these are all things that we've embodied at some period. And I think that they're just sort of trapped inside of a, you know, a never-ending loop of manipulation and games and just teenage warfare. But I hope that helps.
That was a really good note to end it on. I liked that.
Great.
So thank you again for sharing your film with us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.